Namaste, Sairam, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. I'd like to start with an invocation. And this is an invocation to all the universal forces that make anything possible. Om Shanno Mitra Shamvarunaha Shanno Bhavatvaryama Shanna Indro Brihaspatihe Shanno Vishnururukramaha Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayo Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami Ritam Vadishyami Satyam Vadishyami Tanmamavatu Tadvaktaramavatu Avatu Mam Avatu Vaktaram Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Bhagavate Shri Sathya Sai Swamine Namaha. Upasthitebhyaha Gurujanebhyaha Shri Chakravarti Varyebhyaha Shri Nimisha Varyebhyaha Shri Ratnakara Varyebhyaha Shri Subramanyam Mahabhagebhyaha Shri Vedanarayan Mahabhagebhyaha Jnana Vridhebhyaha Sannidhana Varyebhyaha Anya Shrestha Vaktribhyaha Jyeshthaibhyaha Sahodarebhyaha Sahodaribhyaha Matribhyascha Mama Sadara Pranaman Vyaharami. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Subramaniam Bhaina. I call him Bhaina as elder brother in Odia. And for giving me this opportunity once again to be in Puttaparthi in this very auspicious and sacred location to speak a few words on a topic that has been very close to my heart. So the subject, as Bhagini has kindly introduced, is on Vedic psychology and the evolution of consciousness and the path to integral well-being. I will also talk to you, or I'd like to start this by sharing with you a little bit about my personal journey into the Vedas. I grew up in the Sri Aurobindo International Center of Education in Pondicherry. And when I was in my college, which we call Knowledge, there were two quotations of Sri Aurobindo that I read, which inspired me to follow this path. The first one is, he says, I seek not science, not religion, not theosophy, but Veda, the truth about Brahman, not only about his essentiality, but about his manifestation. Not a lamp on the way to the forest, but a light and a guide to joy and action in the world. The truth which is beyond opinion, the knowledge which all thought strives after. Yasmin vijñate sarvam vijñatam. I believe that Veda to be the foundation of the Sanatana Dharma. I believe it to be the concealed divinity within Hinduism. But a veil has to be drawn aside. A curtain has to be lifted. I believe it to be knowable and discoverable. The belief that the future of India and the world to depend on its discovery and on its application, not to the renunciation of life, but to life in the world and among men. So Sri Aurobindo himself was a great scholar of various subjects. He was very well versed with all of European thought. And then when he came to Bharata, he took the responsibility of completely immersing himself into the civilizational contributions that this land has made. And one cannot talk about it without referring to the Vedas as being the foundation of everything that has come out of this land. So the second quotation that he says is, the recovery of the perfect truth of the Vedas is not merely a desideratum of modern intellectual curiosity, but a practical necessity for the future of the human race. So growing up in this kind of an environment with these words, I was very fascinated to try and delve deeper to understand what is that one secret, that knowing which you would know everything. And so when he pointed out to the Vedas, I said this would be a text worth looking into. And Sri Aurobindo himself has written a lot about it from a psycho-spiritual dimension, which means that he looked at the text and tried to understand what is the spiritual and psychological dimensions that are embedded in these texts. So then I said that, okay, so what are these Vedas really all about? When we think of it, the Vedas are understood at 3 levels largely. At the Adhi Bhautika level, they are texts of Karma Kanda, where certain rituals have to be performed, and those rituals have their benefits at a very material plane, which means that if one is performing those and the ingredients that we are putting it, they're first and foremost very beneficial for the environment in which that particular ritual has taken place. But is it only that? No, it takes us a step beyond. We get into the Adi Daivika interpretation of the texts. Here these texts are talking of the relationship of the humans with the gods. What is this relationship and who are these gods? So when we look at the world, we only look at, let's say we look at the sun, because we are limited by our sensorial understanding of reality, we would say that that sun is only that fireball in the sky. But for the Vedic Rishi, they were able to look at the energy that is behind it, at the living embodiment of energy that it represents. So they saw it as the Surya Deva. But then there was another level. So there was another level where the same fireball became a symbol of something that is universal, something that is abstract, a reality that is important for all of us. And at that level, the sun became a symbol of truth. So the Gayatri mantra, when we are saying Tat Savituhu Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, what is our invocation? Dhiyo yo naf prachodayat. If you think of it very, very literally, the question that comes up is how can that sun, that fireball, illuminate our intelligence? So just by that very fact, we know that they're referring to something beyond the sensorial understanding of that sun. And then when we look at deeper translations and interpretations, we realize that that fireball is also a symbol of truth. So it's an invocation for that truth of things to illumine our minds. Because when our minds are not in darkness and in light, then everybody will move forward in a more harmonious manner. So we see that the Vedas have these 3 levels of interpretation: the Adi Bhautika, the Adi Daivika, and the Adhyatmika. The material physical, the occult spiritual, and the abstract at the level of truth, at that level. So then the question is, what are these Vedas really all about? And we come to the root of the word, Vid. Vid has 4 meanings in Sanskrit. So Vid can mean to know. Vid also means to be. Vid also means to obtain or to get. And finally, Vid means to think, manane. So what therefore is the content of the Vedas? What are the Vedas really trying to tell us? So we try and combine these 4 meanings, and you get it that Veda is that knowledge that you have to get on how to be. And how do we arrive there? By thinking on it, by doing manana. And what is the benefit of this process of manana? The process of manana has the power to transform who we are by constant association with those ideas. And then wanting to convert it into nididhyasana, which is the practice in life. Okay, so Vedas therefore is not just a text that we have to read. That is the apara part of the book. So the book of knowledge has again 2 dimensions. There is an apara part, which is about the knowledge of the world. It is telling us about things. And the other, it is telling us about who we are. So this dimension becomes extremely important when we are trying to understand what are the Vedas telling us, what are the Vedas really telling us, and how are they connected to the whole process of the evolution of consciousness and leading to our integral well-being. So then, the path that I would like to follow next is to ask the question. So the object or the goal before us that the Veda says is, who are you? Who do we become? So there is a journey from being to becoming and then coming back to being again. So what is this path and how do we go about accessing and understanding that path? So there is this, what I am calling the framework of the Sanskrit vibhaktis or the karakas. So in Sanskrit grammar, they ask every verb is connected to these vibhaktis, the cases that we talk about. So what are these cases? The first is the karta, the subject. And the question is who. The second is what. The third is how. The fourth is why. The fifth is from where. The sixth is not exactly a karaka. And the last one, the karaka here, is where and when. And the sixth is what is the association with everything around it. So I said, if we look at this framework and try and understand the Vedas from there, we can see what does it really reveal to us. So when we talk about who are we, that becomes a central question. And when we talk of Vedic psychology as well, because psychology, the domain of psychology, is dealing with the study of the psyche. And in modern psychology, the word psyche has changed from being the study of the soul, which it was in the Greek origin, all the way up to the study of mind and behavior. So what is that entire range that we have to understand? All the way from the soul to the range of action, to thoughts and behavior. And what do the Vedas have to tell us in this? So here we see that the Vedas therefore are talking to us about a path of integral well-being by falling back on a clarity of understanding of who am I. And this takes up the entire spectrum of being within, relating to the world without, and then understanding what is the relationship of the within and the without. Okay, so what is the relationship between all this? So Sri Aurobindo talks of 4 doctrines. They are known as the doctrines of the mystics. In the book, The Secret of the Vedas. So when he came upon his own his own understanding of the Vedic text, he wrote a book called The Secret of the Veda. And what does he say there? He says that the Vedic rishis were talking of 4 things. The first is, how do we go from imperfect states of being to more perfect states of being? So this tells us that there are 2 paths. There is one dimension of who we are right now in our manifested self, and who can we become in our potential absolute reality. And are we already that somewhere? Okay. So in this, I thought I will make you do an exercise. So I love to make you do an exercise. I don't want it to be a monologue. So I invite you to join me for an exercise to get an understanding of who really are we. Okay. So just imagine that you're standing in front of a mirror. What do you see generally? You will see color, you will see a shape, you will see size, you will see texture, you will see age, you will see gender, maybe some other signs of community affiliations. You will see all of this. Now all of you have come very beautifully dressed for the function here. If you're in your house and you're relaxing, you will wear a different set of clothes because you are contextually dressing up whatever you consider is you. There is a presentation of the self. All right. Now imagine that you have a specs or a lens and you're looking at yourself through an X-ray lens. What will you see? You will see bones. You will see a skeleton there. Will you just bang your hand like that? If you can see a bone structure, will you just do that? You will think twice, right? Because I can see the shock on my bones. If you have to, you've got the lens and you can see everybody only in bone structures, what will happen? Will you worry about scarf, this, that? It is a level of reality, right? It changes the way we understand reality. Same reality, different lens. Imagine you have a microscopic lens. What will you see? Bacteria. In the morning, Sudha ma'am talked about, health and many other connections with virus and bacteria and all, microbes. So suddenly you see that everything is bacteria. It's a whole different world. Then what will be the basis of your choice? You will see what is good bacteria and bad bacteria. Nothing else matters. So understanding of world will change. Okay, now what do we see here? That reality is the same, but the lens that we are using is changing the way in which we are understanding the reality that we are interacting with. That will have an impact on behavior. That will have an impact on the outcome. This is very important. So now I invite you to look at the world through a quantum lens, which means that you have, supposing the hand, you're using the microscope, you're going deeper, you're using an even more powerful lens, a very powerful lens, and you are going to the level of the atoms and the particles, you're going all the way there. You're looking at yourself through that lens. Will you see yourself there? You will not see yourself. You will not see this. Are you there or have you disappeared? You are there. So what is there? So we are there. What is the form that we see us in? More space than matter. It is vibratory space that we see. Right? So there is vibratory space. Are you conscious that you're there? You are conscious that you're there. All right, so we are conscious. We know that we are there. And now you put that specs and you look at the world around you. Will you see everybody else? What do we see? We see just vibrations. Only vibrations and different forms of energy that we live. So when in the Vedas they talked about the essential reality, they said that there is Sat, we are there. We are conscious that we are there, Chit. And because if you look at the world through this lens, everything is energy, vibrating energy, stretching into infinity. And therefore, the experience, the emotional experience can be that of bliss and of love. So when Swamiji, who wore that lens most of the time, and he was always at that level of consciousness, where he was seeing people what they're capable of. He looked at people at that level, not in terms of, if you wear that quantum lens and somebody says this is fair, this is dark, fat, thin, all of that doesn't make any sense. You look at the quality of the souls and what they are capable of. So you look at it in terms of vibrations. So reality becomes a way of understanding qualities of vibratory patterns. And there are three qualities largely. There are vibrations that are in alignment, Sattva. There are vibrations that are completely messed up and dark, Tamas. And there are vibrations in between, dynamic, and that's the Rajas. So if the world indeed is all about vibrations, then how do we move from very complex, naughty vibratory patterns to more aligned sattvic patterns? So when we talk of the evolution of consciousness, we understand that it is talking about the thoughts, the speech, and the words and actions that will move us from not small, small thoughts, but big thoughts, aligned thoughts. That is what the whole movement of consciousness is. The more we do that, the more we start resonating. We resonate with the universe, where things are in harmony. The individuals or the creatures that bring disharmony is the human being. And why do we bring disharmony? Because we are unaware of the story and the design of the universe. And therefore we bring disruptions there. So how do we come back to ourselves and align? So the first doctrine of the mystic doctrine was, how do we go from being imperfect to perfect? The second one is, how do we understand the three images, that all of this is a process of a battle, the forces of light and the forces of darkness. So who will win in our ground, our battleground? Whom are we offering to? Whom are we giving the yajna to, the fire? The fire, Agni, comes from what are we aspiring? What are we passionate about? Are we passionate about forces of light, or are we giving it to forces of darkness? How are we doing that process of the yajna? And what is the journey that we're going from lower heights to higher heights? So the final kind of doctrine, he says, is that there is one truth which has many names. So I'll just summarize this for you. The first one is that we are going from imperfections to perfections. What are those imperfections? These noisy patterns that we are. How can we bring in harmony and peace within that, and alignments and light? Second one is the image, three images, the battlefield of forces of light and darkness who are fighting within every individual to take possession. So how do we fight consciously on the side of the light? Next one, the yajna that is taking place. Everything is in a process of exchange. So how do we offer to those forces of light to come and become co-creators of greater harmony, love, and beauty in the world? And the third image is that of a journey that is happening from lower heights to greater heights. And finally, that there is one truth and which has many names. So I was just talking to Chandrasekhar ji before this, who also mentioned that one of the things that Swamiji talked about was about educare. And he gave it a full acronym. So he says it is education beyond diversity in unity for Atma realization. Okay? So, like I said, Swamiji has his way, Bhagawan has his way of telling you what to say. So I would not have talked about this if it had not come to me over lunch. But I think this is what, when we talk about the evolution of consciousness and experiencing the path of integral well-being, it is really putting educare in our daily lives. And when we experience the world through the lens of the quantum reality, we realize that we cannot but love all, serve all, help all, and hurt none. No? And I think this is because at the end of the day, if we can live in that level of consciousness, then we realize that it is not about loving thy neighbor as thyself. It becomes love thy neighbor who is thyself. This is a very big shift. It's not as if, but it is you. So we behave in a way that the world is us and take care of the world because there is nothing but us in that world. And this expansion of that complete quantum reality is what they call the Brahman consciousness, where we are in a state of complete expansion. So how can we become Aham Brahmasmi, live with Tattvamasi? We are also that. How do we acquire that knowledge? Sarvam Khaluidam Brahma. How does that become? Prajnanam Brahma, Ayam Atma Brahma. We just have in every single line of the Vedas, this knowledge is being repeated to us again and again and again. So with these few words, I would suggest that, or I would invite all of us to follow the path of the Vedic rishis who said, Krinvantu Vishwamaryam, make of the whole world Aryans. Who are these Aryans? These Aryans are those beings who are ready to fight the battle and fight on the side of light, who are ready to cultivate the soil and grow the seeds of light in them. So can we become Aryans again? And for that, the last mantra of the Rig Veda, which says, Sangachadvam, Samvadadvam, Samvo Manansi Janatam, Deva Bhagam Yatha Purve, Sanjanana Upasate. So let's walk together, talk together, know each other's minds together. Because just like we will do this, the gods have already walked this path together to make this beautiful creation possible. So Bahu Dhanyavada and Om Sai Ram.